This beautiful woman was born into a family of spies in North Korea, and she spent half her life as a spy. Her best tool was her beauty, and she had spent nights with over 100 high-ranking South Korean officials. She provided a plethora of intelligence to North Korea, but ultimately turned herself in to the South Korean police. What could cause such a ruthless, beautiful spy to become a weeping, vulnerable woman in a South Korean courtroom? On September 10, 2008, the Seoul court in South Korea convened a special public trial. Unlike regular sessions, anyone wishing to attend today's trial had to register 2 to 3 days in advance. Citizens and the media underwent a rigorous background check, with the final decision on admission resting with the South Korean prosecutor's office and security agencies. The reason for these stringent security measures was that the defendant, Won Jung-hwa, had been a spy and was accused of stealing and sending crucial intelligence to North Korea over a 7-year residence in South Korea. Her espionage activities were considered a threat to national security, so public hearings were normally not held. However, due to the seriousness and exemplarity of the case, the court decided to open its doors to the public to raise awareness. At the trial, Won made her first public appearance looking distinctly different from the cold, beautiful spy image she once had. She appeared tired and anxious with a gaunt face as she uttered her first words, surprising many who could not believe this was the same woman who had operated as a spy for years. Before the trial, there were reports that she had submitted 2 letters of surrender to the South Korean government, sparking much discussion. The question arose: why would a professional spy suddenly confess after being arrested? Was she truly remorseful, or was this a ploy to make the government lower its guard? Won had a prior criminal record, so the court scrutinized her behavior meticulously this time. In 50 minutes, 261 pieces of physical evidence were presented, all meticulously detailed, proving Won's guilt. Born in 1974 in North Korea, Won's parents were both spies. A few months after her birth during a mission, her father was killed when Won was only 2 years old. To alleviate the burdens of life, her mother remarried a man named Kim Dong-soon, also a North Korean agent who became Won's stepfather. Subsequently, her mother had 2 more children. In this new family, Won felt truly unhappy. She rarely received love from her stepfather, and her mother, busy caring for the younger children, also had little time for her eldest daughter. Gradually, Won became somewhat rebellious and extreme. In North Korea, descendants of martyrs receive special treatment. Thus, as a young girl, Won was not lacking in material comforts. She received a good education and was praised for her intelligence. In 1988, while attending university, she was awarded the prestigious Red Flag Honor, a distinction reserved only for the most outstanding students. In her second year, due to her strong academic performance, Won was sent to a specialized political and military university in Pyongyang, earmarked for spy training. She embraced all aspects of the training from taekwondo to driving and shooting, undergoing intensive spy training. Won also studied Korean and Japanese in detail to prepare for future espionage missions against South Korea and Japan. In addition to learning the languages, she also delved into local dialects and the geography of both countries, meticulously researching local cuisine and customs. After 3 grueling years, the naive young girl had transformed into a determined, beautiful, and cold-hearted spy. In 1992, Won Jung-hwa was about to graduate and officially start her espionage career. However, during a training session, she suffered a severe injury that left her with permanent brain and leg damage. This meant that she was no longer qualified to work as a spy, rendering her 3 years of hard training futile. Reluctantly, Won was discharged and returned to civilian life. North Korean agents typically enjoy high social status and special privileges from the government, including housing and vehicles, benefits that Won would have received, but her dream was now shattered. Tragically, in 1994, a famine erupted in North Korea, severely affecting even the capital Pyongyang, where many died of starvation. Returning to an ordinary civilian life, Won had no skills to support herself. She did not want to seek help from her stepfather, so she relied on government food aid. However, as the famine worsened, sometimes leaving her without food for a month or two, she often resorted to planning supermarket thefts with friends. Despite her injuries, Won's skills far surpassed those of an ordinary person, and she usually succeeded in these thefts, which gave her a sense of self-satisfaction. However, during one heist, Won was caught and sentenced to 2 years in prison for theft. After serving her sentence, Won's criminal record made it impossible for her to find a legitimate job. Thus, she returned to her old ways, gathering friends to commit thefts. In 1996, while stealing precious metals from a factory with her accomplices, they were caught by the police. Her friends were arrested to protect her, and she alone drove off in a truck carrying 5 tons of zinc. In North Korea, smuggling even a kilogram of precious metal is a serious crime, let alone 5 tons. Realizing she would face life imprisonment if caught, Won took some of the zinc and smuggled it directly to China, assuming the role of a refugee fleeing the famine. For 2 years, Won hid in a small town in Jilin, China. Initially, she sold the stolen zinc for a sum of money. Then, undaunted by hardship, she started a small business there, living a financially worry-free life. However, Won felt profoundly lonely and helpless in China, constantly missing her family and friends in North Korea. She began to think of ways to send letters home, hoping they could plead for her pardon under North Korean law and allow her return. Unbeknownst to Won, when she fled to China 2 years earlier, she had become a target for the North Korean spy organization in China, hoping that this former elite agent could be turned into an intelligence spy. After 2 years, Won's status as a refugee was accepted by China, yet her loyalty remained with North Korea. The North Korean Secret Service believed the time was ripe, so they contacted Won to draw her back into the fold and continue her espionage activities from within China. Since the onset of the severe famine in North Korea during the 1990s, many had fled the oppressive political system and dire poverty, including high-ranking government officials and businessmen, whom the North Korean government labeled as defectors. However, North Korea would never allow their escape to go unchallenged. They sent spies to capture these defectors and forcibly repatriate them to face imprisonment, forced labor, and other punishments. Won's first assignment as a spy, from 1999 to 2001, was to monitor these defectors in Manchuria, China. Over those 2 years, she utilized her identity and exceptional skills to gather information on over 100 defectors, providing their addresses to the North Korean government. The majority of these individuals was subsequently arrested and incarcerated in labor camps in North Korea. The North Korean security leaders recognized Won's unique strengths. Her bold personality and lack of discipline from a young age set her apart from traditional North Korean women, especially in matters of gender relations. During her surveillance work, she freely used her beauty to gather information, viewing sleeping with men as a means to an end. With her petite and attractive appearance, Won was a type favored by many men. Realizing this, the security office decided to relocate her to a more suitable environment for her mission, South Korea. In October 2001, Won received orders to infiltrate South Korea. Her operations in South Korea were to be facilitated by her stepfather, Kim Dong-soon. After receiving her orders to gather some information about South Korea, She proactively approached a Korean businessman operating in Manchuria, China. After establishing a relationship, Won obtained the information she needed. However, she soon discovered that the businessman had no intentions of returning to South Korea, meaning she could not use him to cross the border. Deeming him of no further value, she found a reason to part ways with him. Not long after their breakup, Won discovered she was pregnant. As she was about to abandon the baby, the North Korean security agency intervened. They believed keeping the baby would be more advantageous for Won, and she followed their advice. Next, she met and became acquainted with a South Korean man at a dating service. He was captivated by Won's feminine charms, and they smoothly progressed to sleeping together. A month later, Won informed him that she was pregnant and wanted him to take her to South Korea to marry. This man, completely unaware that the child in Won's womb was not his, had no idea that after marrying him in South Korea and acquiring citizenship, Won would file for divorce. After her successful divorce and the birth of a daughter, Won began to plan her espionage activities. This time, she had two main missions. The first was to acquire the identities of North Korean defectors, key targets such as Wang Jang-yup, the former secretary of the Workers' Party of Korea, and the defector leader Kim Hyon-hui, with instructions to assassinate if necessary. The second mission was to steal information from the South Korean military and intelligence agencies. Won believed that compared to being a divorced mother, her identity as a North Korean defector could help her gain access to the highest echelons of the South Korean government. She proactively surrendered to the South Korean National Intelligence Service, claiming to be a defector from North Korea, and hoping to start a new life with the support of the South Korean government. South Korea has always been lenient towards defectors from the North. After verifying Won's claims, the South Korean government approved her application for permanent residency. Won immediately contacted her stepfather and asked him to prepare some capital to start a seafood business, using it as a stepping stone to enter the South Korean upper class. In a society where the boundaries between money and power are blurred, Won quickly succeeded and established herself within the elite, becoming a beautiful and successful businesswoman. Gradually, many influential figures in the South Korean military and political spheres began to take notice of her. On one hand, they sought financial support from Won. On the other, many high-ranking officials were drawn to her beauty and desired a closer relationship. Won was always ready to please and adept at using her beauty to exchange information. Occasionally, she would use her seafood business as a pretext to travel to China. However, the real purpose of these trips was to relay important information back to the North Korean security apparatus operating in China. In 2004, Won was tasked with assassinating 2 South Korean agents. She prepared a syringe and poison. But just before the night of the operation, the North Korean security agency reconsidered, fearing that the assassination could expose Won's identity. Moreover, they believed that she would be more effective at gathering intelligence as a beautiful operative. Ultimately, the North Korean security agency temporarily called off the operation. Won continued to leverage her beauty to gather intelligence. She capitalized on her divorced status by registering with a dating agency, subsequently dating South Korean military personnel and politicians. Whenever she encountered resistance, she used her charm to seduce them. Ultimately, Won successfully used her allure to extract information from over 100 South Korean soldiers and relay it back to North Korea. On her final date, she met Captain Park, who was in charge of military secrets and information regarding North Korean defectors. At 25 years old, he was relatively immature and inexperienced. Won repeated her strategy, moving in with him. Captain Park who was anxious about being involved with a woman 7 years his senior, complied with almost all of Wan's requests. As a result, she successfully obtained personal information and addresses for Hwang Jang-yup, Kim Hyon-hui, and others. Hwang Jang-yup, a former minister of the North Korean Workers' Party, was a key figure who had defected to South Korea and was under tight military protection, making him nearly impossible to approach without an introduction. Therefore, Wan turned her attention to another North Korean defector, Kim Hyon-hui, the leader of a group of defectors in South Korea. Kim Hyon-hui often met and was close to Hwang Jang-yup, and the security surrounding him was not as stringent. With the help of Captain Park, Wan managed to arrange a private dinner with Kim Hyon-hui. Throughout the meal, she made every effort to please and entertain him, persuading him to drink to lower his guard. As the alcohol took effect and Kim Hyon-hui became slightly inebriated, Wan, trained and disciplined, remained sober. In the drunken haze, Wan embraced and kissed Kim Hyon-hui, then proposed to him and requested a meeting with Hwang Jang-yup. However, amidst the excitement, Kim Hyon-hui sensed something was amiss. His instincts still sharp, he pushed Wan away and later took a taxi home. This mission not only failed, but also aroused Kim Hyon-hui's suspicions, prompting Wan to tread more cautiously. Later, Kim Hyon-hui confided his suspicions to Captain Park. While Park was aware of the issues, he used this information to keep Wan close. He had long suspected Wan of being a North Korean spy, but had fallen in love with her, which altered his judgment. Park told Wan that her cover was blown, but he would help her conceal her identity. For the first time, Wan felt a genuine emotional stir, having someone support her without ulterior motives. However, for her, relationships among young people were just ordinary. At a time when Captain Park's love for her deepened, it also presented an ideal opportunity to infiltrate the South Korean military. One knew the South Korean military invited North Korean defectors as security consultants to brief them on the political, economic, military, and cultural aspects of North Korea. Captain Park was the officer in charge of this sector. One wanted Park to add her to the list of instructors. This was a dangerously bold move. If discovered by the South Korean government, she would undoubtedly face rigorous investigation, and her spy identity could no longer be concealed. But one knew that to catch a tiger, one must enter the tiger's den. To obtain the information, she had to take the risk. From November 2006 to May 2007, One gave speeches in South Korean military zones. In her presentations, she extensively used North Korean films and television that praised North Korea, disseminating its political ideology. At the same time, she also mastered a significant amount of information about the South Korean military. One's audacious and frequent actions eventually aroused suspicion. However, she never underestimated her beauty, viewing it as a sharp weapon. She used it to bribe many officials, thereby quashing any doubts about her. The North Korean Security Office tasked her with a new mission to gather intelligence in Japan. One reverted to her old methods, starting to date Japanese men. She made 3 trips to Japan to collect intelligence, but relying on Captain Park's protection over the years made her actions increasingly bold, also increasing her risk of exposure. The South Korean government grew suspicious. This time, while on a mission in Japan, she was detected by South Korean intelligence, engaging in purpose-driven dating activities. Over the years, South Korea had detained One. The government suspected and curtailed her activities. But it was not until then that she realized she had been compromised. One prepared to leave South Korea to urgently flee to Japan. When Captain Park learned that One was planning to leave, he too offered to accompany her. Regrettably, by the time everything was prepared, it was too late. On July 15, 2008, One was arrested by the South Korean police. This time, the arrest of the North Korean spy attracted significant media attention. They harshly criticized North Korea in every statement and demanded answers from the North. On September 4, the Central Committee of the Workers' Party of North Korea officially responded. They claimed Won was called a defector because she had fled North Korea long ago, fearing criminal charges. She was considered North Korea's most significant criminal, and they suggested the espionage might have been her own doing in collusion with South Korea to slander North Korea. The implication was a denial of Won's role as a spy. After being imprisoned, she was uncooperative and in poor spirits, surviving only on nutritional solutions. To get her to cooperate, South Korean intelligence sent a special counselor to advise her. They presented her with an offer from the South Korean government, stating that if Won voluntarily confessed and surrendered to South Korea, the court would consider reducing her sentence. Additionally, social welfare agencies would help take good care of her daughter. Perhaps it was her daughter who rekindled Won's will to live, or perhaps it was North Korea's actions that left her disillusioned. Unable to endure both physical and mental torture, Won proactively signed a confession. She also wrote 2 letters of surrender to South Korea, hoping she and her daughter could continue living there in the future. On September 10, 2008, Won Jung-hwa was publicly tried. She silently listened as the judge read her charges. Only when she heard that Captain Park had also been arrested did her expression change. Her body shook uncontrollably. Perhaps she had once thought about spending the rest of her life with him, but now those thoughts were just distant wishes. After an hour of trial, Won was in tears as she was taken away. On October 15, 2008, the Seoul court in South Korea delivered its final verdict on Won Jung-hwa. She was sentenced to 5 years in prison for violating South Korea's national security laws. Won did not contest the verdict. 5 years later, the once sensational spy was released. She reunited with her daughter. The South Korean government also upheld its commitments, allowing her and her daughter to continue living in South Korea. Now Won is trying to lead a normal life and has no thoughts of returning to North Korea. What are your thoughts on the case of this North Korean spy? Comment below this video. Goodbye, and see you next time.